and then post it on our website for folks to go back and review or share it with other people that maybe couldn't attend, but you feel like there's some information that could be relevant to the work they're doing. So that'll be available about this time next week. And okay, let's try that again. So again, thank you for joining us for the January MHAI Recovery Network meeting. My name is Heather Rodriguez. I am the director of the Recovery Network. Today include Kimbra Reynolds with Past Recovery Services. Then we will have a presentation on the Validus movement by Devin Rush. If you could please mute yourself until it's time for Q&A. After each presenter, we'll open it up for questions and comments and some dialogue after each presentation. And then as we get closer, the closing of the meeting, we open it up for all the attendees to share information about your programs and services. And we really want this to be a networking meeting for folks around the entire state to just share information, resources, fill those gaps in services, all the great things that we do every day. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Kimbra. You're muted.
All right, I think I've got it shared now. Can you see all that?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll put it into the slideshow. Maybe. There we go. All right. So I am Kimber Reynolds with the Jay County Drug Prevention Coalition, also known as Past Recovery Services. We serve multiple counties, and so we set up a doing business as our recovery side for past recovery services. And I am going to talk today about suicide overdose fatality reviews and the importance of peer involvement in those reviews. Wanted to show you where we're located at. We're just right there on the Ohio line. And we have in our, and I'm only speaking about Jay County right now. In our community, we have about 19,000, close to 200 or 20,000 people. We have one school system, Highway 27 and 26 run through our population. And as of 2023, I don't have 2024's or 2025's data right now. We had a rate of 57 per 100,000 of individuals overdosing in our community. And in 2023, the national average was 31.3. So, and that's according to the CDC. So we have a high, at the time in 2023, we had a high overdose rate compared to the national level. So let's talk about what a suicide and overdose fatality review is. It is a shared understanding of what is going on in our community. It's set up to optimize capacity within a community and being accountable to the community as a whole, our entire population. And it is not a blaming session. It's not to sit there and say that one organization or another organization's process was wrong. It was an opportunity. It is an opportunity to build support for one another and our community. Okay, so please keep in mind that you can meet one-on-one or in a group. The things that have benefited us is bringing food or snacks. So if you're looking to set up something for an SOFR, food or snacks is just a great way to get people there. It's important to make sure you have the right staff members at the table. So you might have, let's say in our community, the judge that you think should be there, but he's not going to be the one that has the time to implement and make some changes within your community. That's going to be more of your probation officers. Or it might not be a good idea to have the lead person at your local mental health center. It might be more advantageous to have a individual that's providing services. So those are kind of things that you need to look at. Make sure you're not blaming. That is definitely something you want to do. And you want to understand that we're here to educate and not, again, pass blame. I can't speak today. And the goal is definitely stigma reduction all the way around. And by stigma reduction, we want to make sure when we are talking about an SOFR for the individuals that are coming into the room, and keep in mind that these are a wide variety of individuals within your within your county, within your network that may not understand the stigmatizing language that they can use. So we work on continually talking to them about the language that they use in regards to when we're reviewing individuals. And we have had to like point things out to people, and it's been it's it is always for us in Jay County, it has always been accepted with, oh wow, I didn't realize that. And so it's been very helpful to be able to reduce some of that stigma. These are currently who our stakeholders are. Our first ones was a very short list, as you can see, but now we have a wide variety of individuals that are coming from all populations within our county that might have information and look at systems that we can possibly change to help individuals with substance use disorder. CADCA kind of sets up your 12 sectors within your community. And so these are the individuals that we looked at to come and get involved with the SOFR. One of the things that we look at is we do a timeline of an individual from birth and until the time of death. So we look at who might have impacted them throughout their life. So you're looking at schools, you're looking at law enforcement, you're looking at civic organizations, if they've been involved in DCS, if they had any arrest, those type of things. So you're looking at all avenues, touch points within their life is what we call them. So think about that in your community. Who would you have on your team? So conducting an SOFR is we always make sure there's ground rules. Again, going back to no stigmatizing language, confidentiality is key. So we also make sure that there's individuals that aren't just there to gather information, or there is not necessarily a purpose for them to be there. We do a case presentation utilizing the timeline. The individuals that come have the information of the individual before they come to the session. We meet once a month. So they'll bring any touch points they might have had. And that goes from support groups to hospital. And for our organization, we have two behavioral health organizations that we have them come along and work with us. We have the coroner's there. And then we have peer recovery coaches. That is the key. And I will tell you that has been a very strong point for setting up our SOFR. From the individuals and the timeline, we are able to then look at touch points that there could have been an intervention that might have been missed. And so here's just a little background of what our population looks like. As you can see, we have a little bit more male than female, and we're about even with children to no children. These are our recommendation. We had 458 recommendations. And we looked at the agencies that could impact the decisions. And locally, we were able, because of our peer voices, to make a huge impact on what we could do and change here locally, and then the information to the state was then passed on to the state. And the state is now looking at different things because of SOFRs across the state of Indiana on what they could possibly look for changing legislation legislatively. So again, here's a reminder of 22 we had a lot of common themes. And this is, I need to move this. There we go. There was a lot of common themes that were identified, and that what has led to our expansions of peer support, supportive housing. We formulated a task force, and we were able to present the data to the county commissioners. We were able to distribute countywide surveys on what was going on. And then we launched targeted education and speaker series because of the data that we found through our SOFR. And our peer coaches led those initiatives. They were the ones that were out there speaking to individuals and speaking voice into this. Here are the 7 different strategies of change that we have focused on. Stigma reduction campaigns, huge thing with that. Youth PSA and billboards. We have had a huge increase in our social media campaigns. Providing support, we've got a lot of, I'm not going to read through all these, but we also have our recovery coaches we have people walking in our doors now seeking services. We also have individuals before they get out of jail that we are working with to do handoffs and work with them to get them into safe places. We also have transportation, and then started a dual language class because there was a lot of Hispanic population that was not being served. And we actually have a graduate of our program who is now a certified peer who is bilingual. So that has been huge. And she's actually was one of the patch recipients through MHAI. So we're pretty excited about that. We also were able to expand naloxone boxes within our community because of this. We started out with 2, and now we have 7. So in a rural community, that is huge because the little populations in the little towns that might have 200 in them, they are opening their buildings to put nalox boxes on their buildings where people can go, and they don't have to come into the community, into the larger town of 6,000 to get that. They can get it right there in their safe areas, their safe community. One of the huge things that has happened with our peers is conversations. So one of our peers was speaking up about going to the emergency room and how when they would leave, the nurse would hand them their medications and all that stuff, and here's your medication, and then they would just throw all that away. And so she was able to say, had a nurse talk to me and explained that this was highly addictive, and here's some naloxone, and here's some recovery options, or if you're struggling, that she might have sought treatment sooner. So because of that, we had one of the emergency room's nurses at the table that SOFR. And she came back the next month and said, "Oh, we changed our policy. Now nurses are handing the information to individuals where resources are, the medication you're receiving is highly addictive, and here's some support services." So that happened within a month because of a peer voice. That doesn't happen very often, but it was sure a great success for us. And then just some language changes. Instead of using the term veterans, when we were working with individuals, people that had not been in war, or what they thought was a war, they didn't consider themselves veterans. So we started using the term United States Armed Services Forces. Have you ever served? And that has been helpful too. So just some slight changes and different things that we've been able to do. So here's what the peers do bring. As many of you know, it really does help empower individuals. It really helps them see hope from an actual person. It also bridges that system of care. And then there's that authentic understanding. And they also have someone that they can reach out to. And our individuals that are around the table are seeing individuals that are successful in recovery. So that makes it even more powerful for them to listen to them. Um, so this is why it matters. We're talking about real humans and real data. We're talking about missed interventions. Because they're able to say, yeah, I was in treatment, or my intervention happened because of law enforcement, or my intervention happened because of a family member. We're able to add value to that. It also represents the voice of the community, helps break down those barriers from a systematic experience, looks at dignity, compassion, and drives accountable change. So it's not just what happened, but how can we stop this from happening? So that's huge. Um, and then the power of the combined voices. We have 4 recovery coaches that attend our SOFR, and they're not from our agency. There's some from our agency, but there's others from our system within our community. So it's not just the past recovery services, it's peers from IU Behavioral Health, or peers from Meridian Health Services, or peers from another county that might be coming. So it really does gain that combination of power and looking into this and gaining credibility. So this is kind of one of the things that it also does is it helps reduce stigma. We're able to do a lot of outreach and have that voice from the peers present in the community. We can talk about the impact of trauma and have the peers talk about how trauma really impacted them. And so community action, so think about your community. Who are the key stakeholders in your community that you think could benefit or should be at the table? And how would you integrate peer recovery coaches, and what would be your next steps? So those are things that if you're looking at doing an SOFR or organizing something like that, who would you want? And peer coaches are definitely individuals that you would want at your table. So this is kind of just something I wanted to show about how, since we started our SOFR right during COVID, and then of course we had to stop, and then we implemented it up again. So from 2020, these are some short-term actions that we were able to do. We did. I already told you about the nurse and the medications. We also have our local law enforcement distributing information and connecting individuals. Law enforcement's doing what they need to do, that they're doing their job. However, we have had law enforcement individuals that have talked to individuals and said, okay, you're struggling, but you don't have any substances on you. I'm going to take you to past recovery services and let's get you some help. So they're literally bringing them here rather than just letting them continue and walk down the road. We also have an individual that is one of our participants, and law enforcement has said to her, "You are doing amazing stuff. Make sure you're staying in contact with your coach." So they're adding that positive impact and that encouragement that is huge. That I would say 6 years ago was not happening. So it's breaking down that stigma and those barriers. We were able to implement Handle with Care, and the sheriff's department handles all of that because of the overdoses. We were noticing that kids that were in the home were being impacted. So let's try to reduce the trauma on that next generation by introducing that Handle with Care. And then we started providing grief support programming, not just us, but it's the community, and we just convene them here and provide a safe space for them. And then our long term, we are renovating a recovery residence. IU Behavioral Health donated a building to us. So we were able to announce on Tuesday the contractor that is going to be making those modifications, and he starts next week. So we're hoping within, and he said 3 to 4 months before we can have individuals in there. So we are just very, very pleased to be able to say that is one of the things that were happening. And that came out of an interview. We do next of kin interviews of an interview that I did with a mother whose daughter got out of DOC and she couldn't go to the mother's house because the mother had her daughter. And so they had set her up in an apartment. And all she had in this apartment was a twin size bed and a nightstand. And this was her first day home from DOC. She overdosed the next day because the mother said, she goes, I don't feel there was a safe place for her to go. And I said, and we always ask when we're ending the next of kin interview, what would you like her voice to be? What would you like your loved one's voice to be? And that mother's voice was, I do not want any other child or parent to have to go through what I have gone through. There needs to be a safe place for individuals leaving DOC or leaving jail. So that's huge. Having that voice and that selfless love to say that and give that back to the community. So, and then another long-term thing was, we've got the integrated reentry and correctional support services here in Jay County. So we're doing a lot of handoffs to as they're leaving the jail and working with our peers. Peers going into the jail has been huge for our community. Our sheriff calls us up and says, "Hey, so and so doesn't have a coat when they leave. Can you get that?" And we work with what we've got, and we work with our community providers to get those resources if we don't have them. So it is a system wide change within the community. So here's just some basic information if you are interested. In like the overdose fatality review, if you're interested in learning more about that, you can uh, check that out. 7 Strategies of Change, which is a proven method of the way a community can change. So, and I know I went over, Heather, but is there any questions?
Kimbra, this is Diane Buxton with PAL, Parents of Addicted Loved Ones. Congratulations to your team. I loved everything you said. I'm from Hendricks County and I just became part of SOFR team and we just started it last year. So we're doing baby steps right now,
Mhm.
but I'm taking some of your information back to the team because what you all have done is just amazing. So thank you for everything. Thank you for starting it. And I think every county should have one in their community.
Yeah. When we first started to be fully transparent, we were asked, what are you trying to do? Because many organizations felt it was a pointing blame, pointing fingers. And it's like, no, our goal is to stop deaths. Our goal is to help the community and help the individuals within our community and bridge services so that we're not in silos. Sometimes this happens because there are so many silos and individuals don't know where to go. So thank you for your kind words. Appreciate that.
Sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. He was quiet your whole presentation. It never fails. Well, thank you for sharing all this wonderful information. And I did drop Kimbra's presentation in the chat as a PDF, so you all can access that. If you're unable to download it, just shoot me an email and I'll send it to you via email. Any other questions or comments for Kimbra? Alrighty.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kimbra. Thanks for all the wonderful work y'all are doing. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention, if you all want to drop your name, contact information in the chat, feel free to do that. as we're holding this meeting. And so now I'll kick it over to our next presenter, Devin Rush.
Hey everybody, I'm sharing my screen right now. Let me go. It's been going. If it'll share. Um, see. Mm, Wait a minute. Just stop sharing. My apologies. I'm having some technical difficulties. Is it still sharing, or let me stop it? So, mm, can y'all see the screen?
Yes.
All right. All right. Hello, my name is Devin Rush, and I'm with the Validus movement. Validus is a word meaning strong or able. The Validus movement is a justice impacted movement that is made up of those who have been justice impacted or those who have empathy for individuals who have been justice impacted. It is also a part of Live Free Indiana. It has two sister organizations, the Black Church Coalition. The BBC was established in 2021 to create political platform for Black faith leaders in the Indianapolis area. The Indy Action Coalition is a multi-faith movement in the Indianapolis area as well. And it's been around since basically like the like around 2015, but it renamed itself last year. Um, and they work together to create different types of reforms within the community. Um, Ballot is focused on exactly what's going on with the criminal justice system. The fact is that when we look at what's going on in the state of Indiana, nearly 88% of criminal filings are level 5 felonies or level 6 felonies. And, that's a huge issue within our community. It takes up a lot of different resources as well. When you look at the top 10 felony filings, you'll see things such as possession of methamphetamines, domestic battery, theft, and different things of that nature. And we all know that those are very low level felonies. And if we don't have the proper interventions in place, then we know they can disturb people's lives, they separate families, and it's really the bane of our existence, especially in this political arena that we're in right now with a lot of different things being cut. It's very important that we come together to try to address these different issues. When we look at the reentry process, we also see that individuals who are going to IDOC, 23% of those are on technical violations, and 16% of those are individuals who was on probation or parole and ended up catching new cases, getting new commitments. So the question becomes, what is it that we can be doing better in our community corrections? We evaluate this by looking at the SIM model, which I'm sure several of y'all are familiar with. For Intercept 0, what takes place before 911 is called. Intercept 1, what happens when law enforcement gets on the scene. And Intercept 2, of course, initial detention or those first court dates. Intercept 3, what's going on while the individual is incarcerated in the jail. And Intercept 4, what does reentry looks like, as well as community corrections for Intercept 5. How do we basically maintain the growth that individuals have experienced during their incarceration and can get them stabilized to stay in the community? But Validus itself is built off of the whole goal is to build power. Now, I know that may sound strange to some individuals to build power, but when we look at what power actually is, power is money, it's resources, or it's people. And power is the ability to act, to make a difference. Martin Luther King said, power properly understood, is nothing but the ability to achieve purpose. It is strength required to bring about social change, political and economic change. So what Validus does is it has an ARC campaign. All of our organizations or campaigns are divided into 4 different seasons: listening season, research actions, and authorization, mobilization, and of course the public action. How we go about this are one-to-ones. Building this power, of course, is one-to-ones. One-to-ones are conversations between you and another individual, which lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. The other strategy is listening sessions, right? So listening sessions is when you contact the organization, you build a relationship, but then you use that base to actually hear what the community wants to address within the community, right? What is it that individuals are motivated to do? Throughout this, you find out not only individual self-interest, but you find out a community self-interest, a self-interest among others. So I'm having an issue seeing y'all as I speak to y'all. But if anybody wants to tell me what they feel like the difference is between being selfish and being selfless, or where they actually fall on that spectrum, I'd be happy to sort of address that. Is there anybody who wants to tell me where they see themselves between selfish and selfish?
I will, Devin. So selfish is inward facing or my needs need to be met. Selfless is other person centered where I'm focused on other person's needs instead of my own.
So where would you say you fall, Jeremy?
Oh, I'm definitely other person centered.
You say other person centered.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where you think you fall in there?
Probably a 7 because there's always room for improvement. But I have somebody that keeps guiding me to think of others other than myself.
So, what happens when you too selfless, Jeremy?
Some people would probably say that you get walked on or you become a doormat. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but I think it takes a real strength to think of others before yourself. And some people just don't recognize that because they're too inward focused.
So Jeremy, you reach out to a lot of people, you help a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. Um, has there ever been anything that you've done, like a person got you to do that you didn't necessarily want to do, but you did it like as a favor?
Oh, absolutely. As a peer support, having been part of a localized IRACS team with Past Recovery Services, shameless plug. Um, there was an incident where I don't really want to go into too much detail, but it was a specialized population. And personally, I thought the person had committed what they had done, but then they turned around and mentioned thoughts of suicidal ideations, and then I had to turn around and speak life into this individual. And it's not my job to judge. It's my job to support them as they go through the judicial process when I was part of that team. So I had to think past my own personal thoughts and opinions and support this individual as they were moving forward. That wasn't easy to do, especially at that time, because I really thought that this person had hurt someone. But, I'm not the judge. I'm not the jury. I don't know. So
The reason why I asked that, right, is because how you just addressed that conflict that's within you, while you was helping that individual, when we're building power, that's something that we want to avoid. So, like, I know you pretty well, Jeremy, because we worked together in the past. So I sort of know what motivates you. I know why you do the work that you actually do, right?
right.
And that's actually your self-interest. So like my self-interest, aligns with criminal justice because I was waived to adult court when I was 16 years old. During my incarceration, my kids was placed into foster care. And um, to be honest, I sort of felt victimized for a long time, right? I felt like a victim. Of course, I'm accountable for my actions, but I felt like it just wasn't a complete fair shake, right? Especially being 16, being waived, having my dreams lightweight, sort of railroaded or ran over. And a lot of my personal motivation to get work done relates to that. So you don't know exactly what motivates a person just by having a split-second conversation with them, right? And we use one-to-ones to find out what these motivations actually are, what the self-interest is, so we know what type of role an individual may have within the organization or the things that they may be self-motivated to do, what propels them forward. That way, you don't get the situation where you're making the calls and people are not returning the calls or individuals are not texting back when you actually text them to see what's going on. And it builds the momentum of the organization and allows it to propel forward and actually affect change. I've seen this work. In Indianapolis with the movement. We came together, we had a planned action, and you know, certain things were sparked inside of me to the point to where I ended up speaking at the planned action, where I motivated plenty of other individuals to show up at the planned action, to where on my own free time I actually did research around the topics that we was trying to get addressed at the planned action. And the planned action was actually a success. We ended up winning $17 million for the city of Indianapolis to address things such as the Streets to Home campaign, mental health response teams, and the Violence Reduction Act. So when I say how do we build power, it's people power. Because if we go back to the other slide, you'll see that I had money on there, I had resources on there, and I have people on there. A lot of us don't have a lot of access to money, right? A lot of individuals who are affected by this system. A lot of us don't have a lot of access to resources, but what we do have access to is each other, right? And when we find that self-interest, that particularly that self-interest among others, that's common, right? What do we have in common? And then we come together and we get common unity. And once we have common unity, then we have the power to actually affect change. Now, the listening sessions is to pull out what the community actually wants to do, right? What are the people in the community actually motivated to do? What will they come together to do? What will they speak to their friends and their families about getting done within the community? Um, so that's very key because you have to walk with the community. You can't walk by yourself in this process. And when it comes to self-interest, here's a few examples of what self-interest actually look like. I don't know why it's not popping all the way up right now. Let me see something real quick. Oh, yeah. I don't want to pop up. Let me go to it. By the way, I'll just read them to you. A couple of examples of self-interest would be gun violence, housing, reunification services, recovery services, access to food, environmental, and of course, criminal justice. So there we go. So does anybody on this call, do y'all have any particular self-interest that y'all have already identified?
So I think one of the reasons why uh, myself and Jeremy and even you, Devin, work in the field and the
Oh, yeah, there you
organization
go.
work in are because we've had that interaction with incarceration and lack of reentry or lack of resources and things like that. So, uh, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we do what we do.
Mhm. So what's the key thing that motivates you and propel you forward, Larry?
Change.
Change.
Change, change the systems, change the way things used to be done. And even, Kimber spoke on, things that have changed because of what her organization has done in that community. We look at the statewide results and the changes that's occurred from the IREX program and the positive things that have occurred through that. The positive change you just mentioned was 17 million.
Yeah.
Man, that's a big change, right? That's money that can then go into creating more changes.
Mhm.
And I think at the basis of it is we're not content with the way things are, the way things had been, and we want to see change across the board.
Thank you for that, Larry. The next thing after we identify our self-interest and what the community wants to do to move forward, we do research. We do research actions, which means that leaders engage the policymakers, the petitioners, the stakeholders, and experts on these different issues to find out what is actually doable. Our organization trains individuals to go into these meetings, to have successful meetings. And in Indianapolis, for example, we met with the mayor. Um, we met with the sheriff. We met with the jail commander. We met with the individuals in the community who was providing preventative services to the youth to see how we needed to frame the Indie Peace coalition and what that was going to look like to actually intervene in the gun violence within the community. We went and we got the information, we looked at the data, and then we came back with a solution, right? And we worked with our community partners. That's very key. And because we had done the one-to-ones and because we had done the listening sessions, we had the community with us. We had them walking side by side because I know a lot of y'all have been doing this work for quite some time. And sometimes you come up with a brilliant idea and you know that it'll work. And you have conversations about the policymakers, I mean, with the policymakers and the stakeholders. And then at the end of the day, it doesn't get pushed all the way through, or a part of it gets pushed through, right? And you sitting back and you was like, well, if we would have done this, it would have been this much more effective. Um, and I know y'all work in direct services, right? And that's very, very important. But one thing that I realized while working in direct services is that I wanted to get to a point to where there's nobody else to serve. I don't want to have a job where there's somebody who's dealing with a mental health issue because they didn't get the help they needed 5 years ago. I don't want to have to be going to check up on somebody on house arrest because they've been to prison 4 or 5 times because when they came home was no services there to actually help them stabilize. Um, at a certain point, it's like we're fighting the same fight over and over again. And the fact is, we know what helps people, we know what works, and we have to use our voice to bring it into manifestation, to change the reality, right? To create that change that Larry was just speaking on a second ago. Um, and the last part of the art is mobilization, making sure that the community is there, and then of course the planned action, demanding the change from our public officials that we deserve, right? And that the people actually need. I'm gonna exit out of here to have a conversation with y'all just a little bit. My contact information is right here. Devin Rush at livefreeusa.org. Hello, are y'all still there? There we go. So I'm back to the screen. I can see y'all. I don't know why I couldn't see y'all a second ago.
Thank you, Devin.
So one thing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So now I was going to finish. So one thing that we're actually doing is, although we already have the sister organizations in Indianapolis, we are attempting to spread out throughout the state of Indiana, right? The way that this works is that we'll show up, we'll have an assembly. It'll be about 15 individual core leaders from the community, whether they work at an organization or whether they're peers in the community. When we come in, we're going to do a power training, really breaking down the dynamics of what power is and how to actually build your power within your community, right? And remember, power is the ability to affect change. After that, we'll start the one-to-ones with everybody else in the community in the actual listening sessions. So if there's a shelter in your community, if there's let's say a mental health center in your community, if there's individuals who offer services for DV in your community, we'll contact those organizations. We'll come in, we'll do a listening session. We'll find out what the people who actually have the lived experience and are going through it are actually saying that they need to, get that improvement in their life, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, I'll land right there.
Thank you, Devin. And I did drop a PDF of Devin's PowerPoint in the chat if you want to go in and download that. Again, if you're unable to access it for some reason, you can just email me directly. I'm going to drop my email in there now, and then I will send that to you via email. Does anyone have any questions for Devin before we open it up to networking and sharing? All right. Well, thank you for all that great information, Devin. I love that you guys are going to be going outside of Indianapolis and Central Indiana for the trainings that you went over, the conversations. Are those offered at no cost at the moment, or is there a cost attached to that for orgs that are interested?
So right now, it's no cost. If we start a Valdez chapter, it's no cost. To train outside organizations, that's something completely different. But as far as starting Valdez chapters and getting the work actually done on one-to-ones and listening sessions and effective meetings, it's no cost. We'll show up and we'll do it. And we'll get it done. It's all about the work that needs to be done.
Okay. That's good to know, I think. All right. Anyone else have questions? I see. Okay, you got that. Dropped your email in the chat. Okay. I think if it's possible, Devin, if you wouldn't mind stopping the screen sharing and then we'll open it up.
My apologies.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. And I believe in the chat, I did drop the agenda, Kimbra's presentation, and Devin's. So again, if you need any information from today's meeting, just feel free to email me and I'll send that out to you. And before I open it up for everybody else to share information about your programs and services, just want to do a shameless plug for the annual MHAI Who's Your Idol that just opened this week. Tickets are now available. Also, sponsorship opportunities are available and much appreciated. The event is being held in downtown Indianapolis on February 10th at the Indiana Roof Ballroom, which is a nice spot if you've never been. Usually a good time, so look into that and share with your networks. Okay, and so this time open it up. If anyone wants to plug your program, services you're offering, if you're doing something new in the new year, if you have an event yourself coming up, please share that information. You can raise your physical hand or virtual hand, and I'll just call on y'all. We have 9 minutes, so feel free to utilize that time. All right, Jeremy, go ahead.
So, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the IRACS program. I know several people in here have been involved with it in the past and know of IRACS, which stands for Integrated Reentry and Correctional Support. We are transitioning to an accreditation model, and if this is something that you feel that you would like to have in your community or housed in your community, reach out to us or myself, and we'll start that process and see what we can do to assist in that process. So reach out to me. Oh, also, I wanted to mention that I almost mentioned this, but I feel like the sequential intercept model and the SFOP, if I got that right, or review, they're kind of integrated in a sense of the points of intervention that can be provided. So I thought that's just a cool thing I wanted to point out as well.
Thank you, Jeremy. Anyone else want to share information about your programs, services, upcoming events? All righty then. Our next meeting is going to be Thursday, February 19th, same time, same link. If you would like to present at an upcoming meeting, please feel free to email me directly and I'll add you to the agenda. If your organization is not yet a member of the Recovery Network, feel free to email me and we can have a conversation about what it takes to become a member. Membership is free and it's a good way to just get your organization out more statewide. And so just feel free to email me if you want more information about that. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us. We'll see you hopefully in February. Stay safe and warm, everyone.